That was wonderful, and I feel that I helped by making sure I couldn't be heard. La ouvre les portes, let the doors be open. Statements by members. Déclaration de député.
The Honourable Member for Terrebonne. On June 5th, 1944, at 9:15 p.m., Radio London alerted the French resistance of the start of Operation Overlord by reciting the first two verses of a Verlaine poem called Song of the Autumn, and I quote, "When a sighing begins in the violins of the autumn song, my heart is drowned in the slow sound, languorous and long." The next day, the Normandy landings began. Brave soldiers, many of whom were only 18 years old, were met with intense enemy fire. Too many young people died on the Normandy beaches. But thanks to their sacrifice, Europe was liberated from the Nazis. Many Quebec units, including the Chaudière Regiment, the Black Watch, the Maisonneuve Regiment, and many others, participated in the Normandy landings. This is an opportunity for us today to commemorate their sacrifice and to highlight their exceptional courage. They died for freedom, freedom that we all too often take for granted. Thank you to all of our veterans, lest we forget.
Honourable Member for Niagara Centre.
Mr. Speaker, in Niagara Centre, you would be hard-pressed to find many people who don't know Jim or Mary Dolan. Married for 46 years, Jim and Mary not only raised a loving family, but were the very definition of community service. Always willing to volunteer, in 1994, they saw a need and stepped up to champion the Casey Lynn Fund. Under their stewardship, the program is thriving and has grown to offer assistance to many families throughout the Niagara region with sick or disabled children. Mr. Speaker, as you can well imagine, their generosity and caring spirit have been felt throughout our community. And so, it is with a heavy heart that I share the news that Jim Dolan passed away this past May 28th. Jim will be greatly missed by his wife Mary, their children James, Kim, Scott, and Tammy, as well as his many grandchildren and one great-grandchild. Despite our loss, Mr. Speaker, I am certain that Jim's legacy will live on through the many people whose lives he touched.
The Honourable Member for Medicine Hat, Cardston Warner.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals continue to mismanage the public safety of our country. Now they're considering a firearm ban in an attempt to deal with gang and gun violence. This plan will also fail as it threatens licensed, law-abiding Canadian firearm owners and ignores the obvious problem: criminals. Newsflash, Mr. Speaker, criminals already ignore the law. As gang violence increased, the Liberals failed to deliver funding to the police to combat it. As rural crime increased, the Liberals turned their backs on rural Canada. Their border security mismanagement has led to dangerous foreign criminals entering our country. And what's worse, the Liberals are watering down sentences for some violent crimes. Mr. Speaker, their first step to address any problem is admitting that you have one and that there is one. And right now, many Canadians understand that Liberals are actually the problem. The Conservatives have a plan to tackle crime by focusing on criminals and gang violence. It's time to replace Liberal failures with Conservative action.
The Honourable Member for Long Range Mountains.
Mr. Speaker, my hometown of Corner Brook is the largest community in the Long Range Mountains. And the reason the town exists is a pulp and paper mill, which has been the economic stimulator since 1925. I was so proud to stand alongside the mill manager, Darren Pelly, to announce nearly $11 million from the Strategic Innovation Fund for Corner Brook Pulp and Paper. The mill will use this investment to install the new system to dry and use low-quality biomass to limit the need to cut trees for fuel. It's going to reduce waste sent to landfills, reduce water use by 50%, allow the mill to avoid burning tens of thousands of barrels of oil each year. This funding benefits the environment, strengthens the forestry and paper products trades in all of Newfoundland, ensuring our forest sector will continue to be a leader in my province for years to come. Mr. Speaker, Corner Brook was a mill town, is a mill town, and will continue to be a mill town because of this investment.
The Honourable Member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie. Mr. Speaker, I'll probably have the opportunity to address this House again in the coming weeks, but since this is my last official statement, I'd like to take this opportunity to say a big thank you. Thank you to all the members of our big parliamentary family, colleagues, staff, pages, journalists. I will miss you. Thank you to the community groups and organizations in Laurier-Sainte-Marie for their creativity and their commitment, and for creating a space where everyone can live well. Thank you to my team, Jean-François, Ariane, Christine, Marianne, and all those who have passed through my office. Thank you to Jennifer Peterson. Thank you to Lily and Roxanne, and good luck, Roxanne. And a huge thank you to my constituents for their trust, their humanity, and their inspiration. And finally, thank you to my spouse, Germain Bélanger, who for 40 years now has been the wind beneath my wings. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The member for Winnipeg South.
Mr. Speaker, Maya Angelou once said, each time a woman stands up for herself without knowing it, possibly without claiming it, she stands up for all women. This week in Vancouver, thousands of women and people of all genders are doing just that. They are standing up at Women Deliver and some of its side events, Feminists Deliver, and the pre-conference on Indigenous women and girls. Mr. Speaker, thanks to their tireless work, the women's movement has made some hard-fought gains, and while some would like to roll back those gains, our government will remain focused on leaving a lasting legacy for women and girls, a legacy of empowerment, a legacy of gender equality, a legacy of change that will benefit us all. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well done. Bravo.
The honourable member for Perth Wellington.
Mr. Speaker, June 6th marks the 75th anniversary of D-Day and the Normandy invasions. 14,000 Canadians landed at the beaches of Normandy that morning, and by day's end, 359 had fallen. In the coming weeks, 5,000 more would die. We as Canadians owe a debt of gratitude to those heroes of D-Day that we will never be able to fully repay. Among those heroes was a young man named Art Boone. At age 19, Art had already been in the war effort for 4 years, having enlisted at just 15 years of age. He would go on to participate in the liberation of Holland and would serve his country in uniform for decades to follow. Today, Art Boone is back in Europe, where he arrived 75 years ago to liberate a continent. He returns once more as a hero. History must never forget the heroes of D-Day. Today and always, we honor those who have served and those who made the ultimate sacrifice. We will remember them.
The honourable member for South Surrey White Rock.
Well, thank you, Speaker. We Canadians are generally accepting and tolerant people. We celebrate our multicultural and pluralistic society, we value our diversity, and we live in relative harmony with many different traditions, religions, and cultures. And throughout the world, most people, like us, care about the same things. They care about family and friends and their communities, and they care about having a better life for themselves and for those they care about, whether it's better physically, emotionally, or spiritually. And by recognizing this sameness, we recognize a value that unites us. While multiculturalism and pluralism tend to emphasize our differences, and we can celebrate that sameness, our sameness from many diverse traditions, religions, and cultural beliefs. And that sameness can help us to understand our complex, difficult, and sometimes disparate world from our common aspirations, a place not of differences, but a place of connections and hope. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Ville-Marie-le-Sud-Ouest Île-des-Sèvres.
Levi Oakes crossed over the clouds last Tuesday. There were his family when he passed away. He is looking down now from Sky World. He was a good man, truly, and he was good at gardening. Levi was the last Mohawk code talker. None remain. He used his indigenous language during World War II. He used secret code to protect his family. No one broke the code talker's code. He was very much be missed by his people and his family. I want to honor his name again on one more occasion by using the language that he used so that we could live in peace.
Honorable member for Carlton Trail, Eagle Creek.
The Prime Minister is masquerading as a feminist, willing to tear down any woman who opposes him. Right. As the member for Whitby said when she ran afoul of him, and I quote, "He was yelling that I didn't appreciate him, that he'd given me so much," end quote. Earlier this week, the Prime Minister stated that the history of women's rights shows that every step forward is met by another pushback. But it is his divisive actions and words that have pushed back progress for all women. It's one thing to describe yourself as a feminist and claim you value gender equality, but quite another to walk the talk. Just ask the former Attorney General and the former President of the Treasury Board. If you are a woman who disagrees with the Prime Minister, you can forget about civil discourse. He will undermine and then dismiss you. Canadian women are not being fooled by this virtue signaling. This Prime Minister is not as advertised.
The honourable member for Ottawa West Nepean.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to rise today to talk about the real and tangible way that this government is improving the lives of women and girls. I am talking about the Equality Fund that our government announced this week. To tackle gender issues, we have to act as a team because together, everyone achieves more. We are investing $300 million to build a funding platform and bring together the granting, philanthropic, and investment worlds and make Canada the leading donor to women's rights and gender equality organizations in the world.
In the next 15 years, we hope to mobilize $1 billion for the cause of gender equality. Beyond this funding, we will take on a leadership role by being a vessel of change and by encouraging other countries to follow the same path. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Bourassa. Mr. Speaker, my riding of Bourassa that I represent in this House is brimming with talent and know-how. On March 8th, for the second year in a row, I awarded a Certificate of Honour and Merit and Member of Parliament's medals to 8 exceptional women to mark International Women's Day. I'm very happy to welcome these 8 women to Ottawa today. They are the following people: Micheline Cantave, Gaetana Kolela, Julie Demers, Caroline François, Khadija Giad, Diane Lequedic, Sister Pierre-Anne Mandato, and Brunilda Reyes. Colleagues, please join me in giving them a warm welcome. These are 8 exceptional women. The Honourable Member for Beauport-Limoilou. Mr. Speaker, the Liberal government, more than any government in the history of our country, is centralizing, paternalistic, and arrogant. For the last 4 years, this government has shown that it is not in sync with the spirit of federalism. They've refused to honour tradition by appointing a lieutenant from Quebec, and they named a minister from Toronto in charge of Quebec's economic development. They've added political conditions to the federal transfers. They've refused to give Quebec more power over immigration. They've refused to accept the National Assembly's request to have a single tax return form for Quebec, something that all Quebecers have been calling for, and the list goes on. We Conservatives, like our founding fathers Cartier and Macdonald, will continue to honour true federalism. In 2008, we recognized that Quebecers form a nation within United Canada, and in 2019, when we will be in government, we will be able to work with Quebec because Quebecers deserve better.
The Honourable Member for Pitt Meadows, Maple Ridge.
Mr. Speaker, it's been almost 4 years since I first took my seat in this House, and it's been a privilege to serve the constituents of Pitt Meadows, Maple Ridge. I have loved building the relationships that are so important to understanding the needs of my communities. From groups like Pathfinders, who support at-risk youth, to Alicia's Wish, who provide services to children and youth who are victims of abuse, or groups such as Alouette River Management Society, Keeps, and Watershed Watch, who work so hard to restore fish habitat, advocate education on our diverse wildlife, and try to find ways to reverse the damage to our fish and salmon stocks. Or our Seniors Network, a group of individuals and organizations with a shared goal of providing support and resources for our seniors. And of course, all the businesses and nonprofits that hire summer students so that they can gain valuable experience. When we both build and sustain relationships with the grassroots people in our communities, we can work together to create better outcomes. From the words of Helen Keller, alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. Thank you.
The honourable member for Vancouver East.
Canada committed deliberate race, identity, and gender-based genocide against Indigenous peoples. And we can see the impact of this in every sphere of life. The violence, the loss of life, the child apprehensions, the marginalization, the deliberate exclusion, the poverty, the homelessness rate, the lack of police protection, the Indian Act, the sex-based discrimination, the racism, and it goes on. This is Canada's shame. If we are to show that we have actually heard family members and survivors, we must have an Indigenous-led action plan with a dedicated budget and a timeline for implementation that is publicly accountable. We must address Indigenous land title and their right to self-sufficiency and self-governance. We have a duty to address this historic and intergenerational trauma, social and economic marginalization, and the ongoing dismissal of their expertise. The calls for justice are not just recommendations, but are legal imperatives that must be implemented.
Honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's sunny climate plan was supposed to save the environment and boost the economy. Well, it did neither. And in reality, all it did was punish Canadians for getting groceries, driving the kids to hockey, or even running small businesses. Mr. Speaker, in reality, this carbon tax is a money grab. The Prime Minister has to pay for his consecutive deficits and reckless spending, so he's making hard-working Canadians pay for it under the guise of a climate plan. That's right. If the Prime Minister really cared about the environment, he wouldn't be exempting Canada's largest emitters from the carbon tax. And he certainly wouldn't be spending more time flying to his vacations than most Canadians have actually spent on vacation in the last 5 years. Mr. Speaker, the Liberal government is nowhere near meeting their climate goals, and now we're at the point where the United States is closer to reaching their targets than Canada. The sunny ways are over, and we're left with a money-grabbing carbon tax. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals' climate plan is not as advertised.
The honourable member for Edmonton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, when I knock on doors in my riding and meet families with young children, I ask them about the Liberal baby bonus, and they tell me that they love it. Early in our mandate, families in Edmonton Centre hoped that the Canada Child Benefit would do better for them, and it has. In April alone, we issued over 7,000 payments to over 12,000 children for a total of $4.6 million into the riding. That is over $55 million tax-free directly to Edmonton Centre families each year. 3 years into the program, we've lifted 17,000 children in Edmonton out of poverty. That is equivalent to a Rogers Place full of children out of poverty. Add their parents, and it's a Commonwealth Stadium full of people able to make the ends meet. Across Canada, we've reduced poverty from 13 to 9%. You know what we call that in Edmonton, Mr. Speaker? We call that better than advertised.
Order. 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 Order, colleagues. colleagues, there are likely to be disagreements here, and there should be, but we can't all speak at the same time, and we should show respect for this place and for each other and for different opinions. We don't all speak at once. Don't interrupt. Order. Members want us to get started? Oral questions. Questions orales. The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's failures when it comes to dealing with the government of China are escalating, and his gross mismanagement of our relationship with China will now hurt even more Canadians. This time, Canadian meat producers are being punished after China's custom agency announced that they're going to dramatically increase inspections and open all containers of Canadian meat and meat products. Does the Prime Minister not realize that Canadian producers are suffering as a result of his failures, and what's he prepared to do about this?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Mr. Speaker, we're working closely with farmers from all agricultural industries. Our first objective is to reopen Chinese markets, and we are united with my colleagues in Foreign Affairs and other colleagues. Yes, we were informed that China is going to increase pork inspections, and that's why we encourage all industry members to be extremely vigilant in their exportations. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
House Leader.
Yeah. Oh, like it's producers' fault. No, Mr. Speaker, that's absolutely incorrect. Now, 5 months ago, former Liberal Cabinet Minister John McCallum had to resign in shame as our ambassador to China. We're now in June, and the Prime Minister has not appointed a replacement.
That's right.
Canadians are being detained on bogus charges. Soybean producers are facing new barriers, and canola producers are having shipments blocked. And now the Chinese government is going after our meat producers. This is going from bad to worse. Right. Why has the Prime Minister not appointed an ambassador to China?
Liberal failure.
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture, Tourism.
Relationship with China is extremely important, and we are very concerned with the detention of Canadians in China, and that's why we're rallying an important amount of friendly countries, and also that we were able to make sure that we have a joint statement with the United States calling for the immediate release and, of course, rejecting the wrongful detentions of Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig. Thank you.
Order. The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
It's not working, Mr. Speaker. This relationship and the impact is getting worse. The Prime Minister's failure when it comes to the Chinese government is causing real pain and real suffering for Canadians. He's failed to appoint a new ambassador. He's refusing to pick up the phone and call the Chinese premier. Canadian lives are at risk, and agricultural producers are suffering. When will the Prime Minister finally start treating this crisis with the seriousness, the urgency, and the attention that it requires?
The Honourable Minister of Tourism. Mr. Speaker, obviously our relationship with China is very important, and that is why the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Prime Minister are ensuring that this is a priority file. And what concerns us right now, particularly, is the situation of Canadians in China, and that's why we've created an international coalition of countries that support us in our position, and we've issued a joint statement with the U.S. asking for the immediate release of those currently detained in China. Mr. Speaker, in terms of the crisis with China, the Liberals are big talkers but take little action. The crisis continues to worsen. The Chinese government now has the pork industry in its sights. 2 factories have lost their export permits, and now every Canadian container of pork will be thoroughly inspected. What is the Prime Minister doing? What is the Agriculture Minister doing to protect our market access? Absolutely nothing. When will the Prime Minister finally stand up for Canadian farmers and producers? The Honourable Minister of Agriculture. Mr. Speaker, we're working tirelessly and across the country to face this situation. Our priority is to reopen markets in China for our agricultural products. Mr. Speaker, we've increased our support to producers, to all producers, through our early payment program. producers can make a request up from June 10th, and they already have access to early loans of $400,000. Now they're up to $1 million and $500,000 without interest. Thank you.
I want to remind my honourable friend from Prince Albert that I can hear him way down there, but I really would prefer to hear him only when he has the floor, of course, as he'll understand.
The honourable member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, the canola crisis is not about quality. Canadian pork has no quality issues. Yet the Liberal government is refusing to address this crisis from a political angle. The director of the Chinese Institute at the University of Alberta was clear. He says that I think this is political revenge in disguise. Why is the agricultural minister hiding her inaction behind a technical delegation that hasn't gone to China? Why is the Prime Minister refusing to appoint an ambassador and file a complaint with the WTO, the Honourable Minister of Agriculture? Mr. Speaker, we should celebrate. It's rare when I agree with my colleague, but there's no question of quality in this crisis here. We have high-quality products, and our inspection system is also very reliable and internationally renowned. Our representative at this council at the WTO did raise this issue. Thank you.
Westminster Burnaby.
This Liberal government has created the most unequal tax system in the industrialized world. The Liberal system of tax havens and tax loopholes lets millionaires in Canada's most profitable companies get off the hook from paying their fair share. Now, Canadians have just found out that the Revenue Minister has let yet another millionaire tax evader off the hook through the KPMG offshore tax scam. Liberals have created one set of rules for millionaires and another for everyone else. Why do Liberals always reward wealthy tax dodgers? Why don't they make them pay their fair share?
Honourable Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, our government is firmly committed to fighting tax evaders. Out-of-court settlements are reached through a fully independent process within the Canada Revenue Agency in collaboration with the Department of Justice as to ensure the integrity of the tax system. While we understand that settlements can be used appropriately in certain circumstances, we are concerned about the lack of transparency associated with them. That is why the Minister has directed the CRA to review its processes to allow for greater transparency on the reasons why a settlement is reached.
The Honourable Member for Berthier-Maskinongé. Accused of having used a fraudulent tax scheme to avoid paying their fair share of taxes, KPMG's rich customers have been granted a tax amnesty. By who? The Minister of Revenue. And this is not the first time that this accounting firm's clients have had a sweet deal from the federal administration. This is a flagrant lack of transparency from the federal government. Mr. Speaker, when will the Liberal government act and stop giving the wealthiest Canadian a free pass and make them pay their fair share? The Honourable Minister of Transport. Our government is clearly committed to fight tax evasion, and we do reach settlements through a fully independent process at the CRA in cooperation with the Minister of Justice to ensure the integrity of our tax system. Although we understand that the rules can be used appropriately in some circumstances, we are concerned by the lack of transparency. That is why the Minister gave directives to the CRA to review its process to allow for greater transparency. Inaudible. The Honourable Member for Berthier-Maskinongé. This government favors big corporations over taxpayers, SMEs, and workers. Today, TVA announced 68 layoffs, and they clearly said that unfair competition from web giants are mostly the reason why we've had these job losses. The NDP has been asking for quite some time for web giants to pay their fair share. Mr. Speaker, why is this Liberal government not taking action and make these web giants pay their fair share? The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage. Mr. Speaker, first, our thoughts go out to the employees and the families of these individuals. This is a tragedy, particularly because it affects the agriculture and communication sector. We asked a question to the Conservatives, for 10 years, they did nothing. Well, and we are addressing this issue, and we're reviewing the system, and we're going to create legislation, and this can be an exception.
Westminster Burnaby.
Mr. Speaker, Liberals have been in power for 4 years. It's about time they took some responsibility for that. Now, in the past, people in large companies paid equal amounts of income tax. And since then, Liberal and Conservative governments have shifted the balance in favor of the richest companies, and people have been forced to make up the difference. Liberals and Conservatives seem to always put the profits of the wealthiest ahead of people trying to get ahead. Why don't the Liberals have the courage to make sure the richest in Canada, including the web giants, pay their fair share?
The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage.
Again, the question should be asked to the Conservatives that for 10 years, for 10 full years, they did nothing, Mr. Speaker. On our side, we're working, we put in place a panel that will give the recommendations, and we will change the law, Mr. Speaker, a law that predates internet, and while they did nothing, we'll make sure that anybody that participates in the system contributes to the system, Mr. Speaker, without any exception.
Order, order. As much as we all enjoyed the debate, we can't all take part at once. Order. One à la fois.
One at a time, please. The Honourable Member for Richmond-Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, yesterday, all parties at the National Assembly of Quebec denounced the Prime Minister's paternalistic and centralizing position. All the parties in Quebec denounced the fact that this government is trying to bypass the Quebec government to distribute funds to municipalities. This is unacceptable. And we've had this law since 1867. Why is this Liberal government and this Prime Minister so disrespectful? The Honourable Minister of Infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to remind my colleague that respecting provincial jurisdiction is investing with them. And that is why we're proud to have announced an investment of more than $500 million. And we are proud of having invested in the safety of users. And we're proud to have invested to modernize infrastructure in transit. So to bring Montreal from the 20th to the 21st century, we're going to continue to invest in provinces and in the country to improve the quality of life of Canadians. The Honourable Member for Richmond-Athabasca. Mr. Speaker, I'm not inventing anything. This Prime Minister said last Friday at the FCN Congress that he was willing to bypass the provinces to achieve his ends. M30 is clear. All agreements for municipal infrastructure have to go through the Quebec government. This Prime Minister is not respecting provincial jurisdiction. He's centralizing and paternalistic. Can we agree that the Prime Minister is trying to bypass the government of Quebec, yes or no? The Honourable Minister of Infrastructure. I'm sure that what we heard yesterday, the leader of the opposition say Ottawa knows best. We agree that Canadians know better. We think that communities know better. We think that the users know better. And that is why we're going to continue to invest in public transit, in green and modern infrastructure across the country. We're going to continue to invest in Canadians, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen Nicola. Order.
Speaker, Canadians are sick and tired of the protectionism within their own country and this Liberal government's failure to do anything about it. We are one country from sea to sea to sea, and Canadians should be able to buy and sell goods between provinces. Now, the Prime Minister's free trade plan, half of the agreement is 130 pages of exceptions. It's time for action, not more Liberal failures. Premiers are stepping up for genuine interprovincial trade. When will this Prime Minister do the same, Mr. Speaker?
The Honourable Minister of Infrastructure.
Mr. Speaker, I hope there's many Canadians watching TV today because only Conservative can pretend that Ottawa knows best, Mr. Speaker. In 10 years of government of Mr. Harper and the Leader of the Opposition failed to move interprovincial trade forward, and his promise is more empty words and more big promises with no plan to deliver. Canadians have seen that movie, Mr. Speaker, when it comes to the environment. All talks, no plan, Mr. Speaker. We will continue to make sure that we have free trade within Canadian provinces.
Yes, we will.
Honourable Member for Foothills.
Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister has failed miserably when it comes to free trade between provinces. In fact, he has fought against it in court.
That's right.
Half of the Liberals' Canada Free Trade Agreement is a list of exemptions of things that cannot be traded.
Shameful.
This is not free trade.
Wow.
In fact, much like this Prime Minister, his no trade agreement is not as advertised. Interprovincial trade barriers are costing the Canadian economy $130 billion. When will this Prime Minister get out of the way and allow free trade between provinces?
The Honourable Minister of Infrastructure.
Mr. Speaker, again, for viewers at home, this is Ottawa's knows best side of the House, Mr. Speaker. Let me remind Canadians who are watching, Mr. Speaker, beyond failed promises, the Leader of the Opposition remains consistent on one thing alone, and Canadians know that be it on the environment, the economy, or the unity of our country, he has no real plan for Canada and for Canadians, Mr. Speaker. We have a plan to move goods across Canada. We have a plan to grow the economy, and we have 1 million jobs to show, Mr. Speaker.
Order. There might be more viewers tonight for the Raptors game. I don't know, but I think we need to listen to each other, and the show needs to improve its decorum a little bit. Now, remember, for Halliburton, Kawartha Lakes, Brock.
Speaker, the Kawarthas lost 300 jobs when the Liberals killed the West to East pipeline. Tens of thousands of jobs have been lost in Alberta and across the country because of Liberal indecision and a lack of planning on TMX. Conservatives have a plan. We'll work up front with the provinces and Indigenous communities on an energy corridor, a plan that will lower assessment costs, improve certainty for investors, and create jobs. So, when will the Prime Minister quit attacking the energy sector and allow job-creating projects to move forward?
Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Well, Mr. Speaker, if the honourable member and the member of the Conservative Party of Canada are really concerned about the energy sector and the pipeline projects, they would not have voted to kill and end the process that we have put in place to move forward on the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion in the right way. We are consulting in a meaningful way with Indigenous communities, and we are scheduled to make a decision on this project by June 18th. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Lakeland.
Liberals already killed 2 pipelines outright, and 0 new ones are in service. Getting the Trans Mountain expansion built will lower sky-high gas prices in BC and get Western and Atlantic Canadians back to work. It'll create thousands of jobs outside of Alberta and benefit all of Canada. It will support the 100,000 jobs in Ontario and Quebec that depend on oil and gas. But the Liberals already approved it once in 2016, and their mistakes have held it up. The majority of Canadians and Indigenous communities want the Trans Mountain expansion. So this time, what exactly is the plan for construction to start on June 19th, and when will it be in service?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, I think it is a good opportunity to remind the members of the official opposition that their broken system led to failure on the Northern Gateway. Their broken system led to the exclusion of the impact of marine shipping and its impact on the marine environment from the NEB review. We are fixing the system that has led to failures. We are engaging with Indigenous communities in a meaningful way, in a two-way dialogue to ensure we are listening to their concerns. We're offering accommodation on the issues that they have identified, that will be moving forward on this project.
Afraid I have to ask the member for Chilliwack Hope and the member for Lakeland to not interrupt when someone else has the floor. And I would ask all members to listen when someone else has the floor. Order. L'honorable
The Honourable Member for Trois-Rivières. Mr. Speaker, earlier this week, the Liberal government was proud to give me an update that the Infrastructure Bank would be involved in the high-frequency train project. Wow. If the Liberal Party is taking a position is to guarantee juicy profits for its cronies instead of offering affordable service to consumers. With the creation of its public climate bank, the NDP will offer the best value for the money. Mr. Speaker, can the Liberals one day imagine fighting climate change without filling the pockets of their friends? The Honourable Minister of Transport. Mr. Speaker, my colleague once again mentioned the high-frequency train, something he does every week, and I'm happy to tell him that we're going to continue to work on this project, a very serious project that could have an influence on many Canadians. So he should know that our government is being diligent in terms of this project, and when we have something to announce, we'll do so.
Vancouver East.
Provisions in Bill S3 would eliminate the discrimination against First Nations women and their descendants once and for all. All that is needed is for this self-proclaimed Prime Minister, feminist Prime Minister, to bring those provisions into force with an order in Council. It's been 18 months since this bill passed, still no action. Will the Prime Minister get on with it and immediately enact Recommendation 1.3 of the Calls for Justice so that the 270,000 First Nations women and their descendants can finally be free of this sex-based discrimination?
The Honourable Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations.
Mr. Speaker, gender equality is a fundamental human right, and Bill S3 eliminates sex-based discrimination from the Indian Act. Ministerial Special Representative Claudette Dumont-Smith and departmental officials have held over 200 engagement sessions with communities and have received over 100 consultation reports from our partners on Indian Act registration reform, including recommendations for an implementation plan to remove the 1951 cutoff. She is currently finalizing her report, and we look forward to her final recommendations, and I will be reporting to Parliament within the next couple.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, unlike yesterday, I would like the Minister of Public Safety to take the time to seriously listen to my question. We know that the CBSA intercepted 238 individuals, 27 of whom were inadmissible and 3 of whom were cartel members. We know this. The problem is that there are 400 other individuals, either Mexicans or people traveling under a Mexican passport, linked to organized crime, who have entered Canada and who live freely in our communities right now. The question is simple. Is the Prime Minister taking measures to find and arrest them, deport them?
Mr. Speaker, the figures the honourable gentleman refers to are anonymous. They are unverified. There is no obvious source for those allegations. The fact of the matter is CBSA has reported the hard data both to me and to the Parliamentary Committee, and the honourable gentleman knows very well what those figures are. If there is anyone in Canada that is inadmissible to this country on the basis of criminality or any other cause, CBSA and the RCMP take the appropriate steps to investigate them and remove them.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the Minister for his answer, and we know that people have been intercepted, but the problem is to know if really these cartel members who are operating in Canada. But can the Minister confirm that Mexican cartels are selling drugs in Canada? They're very active, yes or no?
Safety. Mr. Speaker, the honourable gentleman continues for days to repeat the same unfounded, unverified, anonymous allegation. If he has any proof, if he has any evidence that in any way supports the allegations he has made, he should stop the rhetoric and submit it to the RCMP.
Order. The honourable member. Order. The honourable member for Barrie Innisfil.
Like everything else with this Prime Minister, he says one thing and does another. The so-called transparent and accountable by default Liberals are at it again. This time, it's not redacted documents or withholding documents for Liberal cover-ups and scandals they're engaged in. No. This time, they're trying to prevent the Auditor General from doing his work to hold these Liberals to account, because for the first time in Canadian history, he'll be unable to complete audits as a result of the Prime Minister's refusal to fund his important work. Why?
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Speaker, first permit me to reconfirm our deep appreciation and respect for the work of the Auditor General and the staff.
They find it funny.
I have to ask, Mr. Speaker, are the Conservatives gluttons for punishment? Because let's look at the accounts. They cut the budget of the Auditor General. Liberals voted against that. We added $41 million to the budget of the Auditor General. The Conservatives voted against that. What's so difficult to understand? We support the Auditor General.
That's right.
Honourable. Order. The Honourable Member for Barrie Innisfil.
I asked why, but there was no answer, so I'll tell you why, Mr. Speaker. It's because the Liberals know they're failing at just about everything they're doing, except looking after their well-connected, well-heeled friends while attacking anyone, including the Auditor General, who would expose the rot within the Liberal Party. At no time in Canadian history has any Auditor General ever said they couldn't do their job and have to cancel audits for a lack of funding until now. Isn't it true that the Prime Minister is afraid of the truth of his failures being exposed, and that's the reason he's moved in to silence the Auditor General?
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. Speaker, of all the reports written by the Auditor General this mandate, over 70% were directly related to the failures of Conservative policy, and that will be through that batch soon. So I want to thank the Minister. I want to thank the member for giving us multiple opportunities to remind this House of the muzzling of scientists, cutting the long-form census, obstruction during the previous government. Where was this member when his party voted to cut the budget of the AG?
He was silent.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagotte. Mr. Speaker, I have repeatedly called on this self-proclaimed feminist Prime Minister to reform his sexist EI program. EI shuts out far too many workers, but especially women. 50% of men qualify for benefits. For women and mothers, it's 35.2%. Workers are fed up with Liberal inaction. They want a government that's on their side. What's it going to take for the Liberals to get it in gear and reform the sexist EI program? The Honourable Minister of Social Development. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very happy to be able to answer this question. We have repeatedly said since 2015 that EI was essential for middle-class families, and that's why we have improved it in a number of ways by making it more generous and flexible when it comes to maternity and parental benefits, compassionate leave, and we also have the Canada Child Benefit, which disproportionately helps women and mothers across Canada. It helps 9 out of 10 families in Canada and has brought millions of children out of poverty.
Mr. Speaker, despite the Liberals' so-called feminist cred, they've done nothing for women who need to access EI. Only 1/3 of unemployed women can access employment insurance. And when they finish their maternity leave, women have to work hundreds of hours to become eligible again. A growing number of women are stuck in precarious employment and can't access EI. Women in Canada are paying the price of an EI system that discriminates against them. So why have the Liberals failed to deliver for working women, and what will they do to fix this injustice?
The Honourable Minister of Social Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very pleased to have more time to talk about our investments through the EI system that are supportive of gender equality. Mr. Speaker, we're in 2019. Gender equality is a key feature of our economic growth. We have introduced a new parental sharing benefit, that gives 5 extra weeks to parents that share their EI benefit, therefore encouraging greater equal participation of mothers and fathers. We're in 2019, Mr. Speaker. We look forward to working more for women and mothers across Canada.
The Honourable Member for Hastings, Lennox and Addington.
Mr. Speaker, today is World Environment Day, a day for encouraging worldwide awareness and action to protect our environment. While conservative politicians still have no plan to tackle climate change, our government knows that protecting our environment and fighting climate change is the challenge of our generation, and that is why we are taking real action.
That's right.
Can the Minister of Environment please update this House on the actions that the government is taking to fight climate change and protect our environment?
Good question. Honorable Minister of Environment. Order.
Colleague for his advocacy to protect the environment, and I'd like to wish everyone across Canada a happy World Environment Day. We understand that taking action to protect the environment, tackle climate change is good for the environment, it's good for the economy, it's good for our kids. It's unfortunate conservative politicians do not understand that. You have the Leader of Opposition saying that he knows best, that Ottawa knows best. What they know best, Conservatives, is how to do nothing on the environment, nothing on climate change. Today we announced $15 million to support Forests Ontario, to support 50 million trees being planted in Ontario. That's good for the environment. It's good for the climate.
The honourable member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, after giving Loblaws $12 million, once again the Liberal government looks bad for raining millions of dollars on a number of Canadian clean technology venture funds. However, 2 of the 3 winning applicants say they don't particularly need Ottawa's money. Mr. Speaker, it's all wrong and totally unfair to those who truly need the money. Why doesn't the Liberal government get it right instead of handing out cash to investors who don't need it? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Finance Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'm very pleased to have an opportunity to rise in the House to say that the experts in giving money to people who don't need it is the Conservatives. For 10 years, they gave handouts and tax breaks to people who didn't need them. I wonder how many people in the members' riding had $11,000 left over after taxes in their pocket to put into TFSAs. We, on the other hand, have reduced taxes on the lower class and introduced the CCB. This is a plan that's working, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Banff Airdrie.
Well, Mr. Speaker, under the Liberals, the national debt is growing by over $2 million an hour. Yet it isn't stopping them from finding new ways to squander Canadians' hard-earned tax dollars. First, they gave Loblaws $12 million for fridges, and now it's $50 million to an investment fund who, when asked if they needed the money, said, no, but it's great to have it. Those are words that most Canadian small businesses would only dream of being able to say, Mr. Speaker. So why are the Liberals handing out money to giant companies who literally don't need it, instead of helping small businesses by reducing taxes and cutting red tape?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'm glad to rise in this House this time in English to remind the member opposite that our plan, unlike theirs for 10 years, has been working for Canadians. While they were giving tax breaks after tax breaks to the wealthiest, we decided to take a different approach and give more to those who need it the most. We've reduced taxes for the middle class. We've made the Canada Child Benefit the most progressive social policy in a generation that's lifted hundreds of thousands of kids out of poverty, has reduced poverty in this country by 20%. I know that was never their policy intent. That was never their intent to reduce inequalities in this country. We've taken that very seriously. Thank
you. The honourable member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Mr. Speaker, I have repeatedly asked the Minister of the Environment to tell Canadians the truth and admit that Canada won't be hitting its Paris targets. Why is she dodging the question and not being transparent? It's all a smokescreen. Their environmental plan isn't working. This government has to come clean and state clearly that the Paris targets will be missed. They should pull their heads out of the stand. When is this government going to make it clear to Canadians that Canada is not going to be hitting its Paris targets? The Honourable Minister of the Environment. It's funny listening to these questions from the Conservatives. I'd like to wish them a happy International Day of the Environment and ask them if they will continue, whether they will vote along with us to support our motion declaring a climate emergency. and stating that we have to take urgent action. And will they accept that we must meet our Paris targets? Will they vote along with Canadians or against them?
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal climate plan is a massive failure. In fact, every expert, including the minister's own department, says they're not going to meet their Paris targets. Yet the minister continues to deny the truth and mislead Canadians. Now, 2 weeks ago, during a very candid moment, the minister admitted what she was trying to do. She said, and I quote, "If you repeat it, if you say it louder, if that is your talking point, people will totally believe it. Canadians are smarter than that." Will the minister now admit that her plan is...
Order. The Honourable Minister of Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When we're talking about talking points, look at the other side. Who's reading the talking points about how they're going to do less and less to protect the environment and tackle climate change? We're committed to taking action to tackle climate change. We've created 1 million jobs while we're doing it. We're making life affordable. But at the end of the day, we all have an obligation. On World Environment Day, I would ask all Canadians to think about how we can tackle the biggest challenge of our generation, climate change, and how we can do it in a way that grows our economy and creates good jobs for Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Longueuil-Saint-Hubert. Mr. Speaker, Google spent $47 million on IP lobbying in Europe. Here, the Liberal government is in tight with the internet giants like Facebook, Google, and company. It's preferential treatment, and the consequences are very real. TVA announced today it would be cutting 68 jobs and blamed it on Liberal favoritism. And they're two different sets of rules. This government has done nothing in 4 years. Why? Order. The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage. Well, he's in fine form today, Mr. Speaker. The Conservatives were in office for 10 years and did absolutely nothing. We set up a panel that is analyzing the situation, and the legislation will be amended. There will be one system that applies to all, and those who take part in our system will have to contribute to it. There is no government that has contributed as much to culture as we have. I'd like to remind the member for Longueuil-Saint-Hubert that you have to listen when others are speaking. Others listened to him when he had the floor, so you have to listen to others. Order.
Langford.
Mr. Speaker, last year the Minister of Foreign Affairs promised compensation for Canadian dairy workers after 3 successive free trade deals put thousands of Canadian jobs at risk. While Budget 2019 promised compensation for dairy farmers, dairy processors who employ 24,000 in Canadian rural communities received nothing. Not $1 was allocated for dairy processors to compensate them for economic harm stemming from these free trade agreements. So, Mr. Speaker, when will the Liberals deliver on their promise to fairly compensate Canadian dairy processors?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Monsieur le Président, je remercie mon collègue.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for giving me this opportunity to give everyone an update on our commitment on the issue of supply management. Our commitment is rock solid. We're protecting farmers and dairy and poultry farmers and processors. We're on the verge of disclosing what mechanisms will be put in place to provide the promised compensation to our producers. Thank you.
This is a lot of clean energy. So we can help other jurisdictions reduce their environmental impact with our clean energy resources. Minnesota is prepared to buy renewable clean hydroelectricity from Manitoba to displace coal generation in their state. The National Energy Board and the province have both approved the transmission line, but this Prime Minister refuses to allow the project to go forward. We know the Prime Minister regularly shows his disrespect for the provinces, but why is he punishing all Manitobans and preventing them from realizing the benefits of this fantastic clean energy opportunity?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, our government is supporting clean energy projects that are reducing emissions and creating good, well-paying middle-class jobs.
That's a fact.
However, it has become clear that because of the agreement that Manitoba Hydro has proposed with Indigenous communities, and Manitoba Hydro was forced to cancel that agreement by the Manitoba government, there are issues that we are trying to resolve to ensure that we are concluding our meaningful consultation with Indigenous communities in a right way, in a meaningful way, to ensure that good projects can move forward.
Honourable Member for Kamloops, Thompson Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, the community of Vavenby received devastating news on Monday when the sawmill Canfor closed and 178 people were out of work. This follows Tolko industry closure, where 240 people in Quesnel are out of work. This is the second major shutdown in the last 30 days. We have an industry in crisis. This government, why did they fail to make resolving the softwood lumber issue a priority when they renegotiated NAFTA?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, our heart goes out to the people and the workers who are impacted by these closures of the sawmills. We know that the reduction in logging and forestry in that area because of the issues around wildfire, as well as the infestation due to a pine beetle that has been caused by climate change. And we are ensuring that proper support is available for industry and proper support is available for workers who are impacted by these closures.
Order. The Honourable Member for Caribou, Prince George.
Mr. Speaker, in signing the last softwood lumber agreement, our former Conservative government put an end to the longest and most costly trade dispute with the U.S.
That's right.
We expanded overseas markets. We championed a Wood First initiative. But when the deal expired, the Liberals have refused to make securing a new softwood lumber agreement a priority. In my province, over 140,000 jobs are forestry dependent. 140 communities are forestry dependent. In the past 3 weeks, 7 mill closures have been announced or are imminent. How many more families have to lose their livelihoods before it becomes a priority for this Prime Minister?
Here, here. Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Conservatives simply don't know what they're talking about. Our government saw the consequences of the horrendous quota deal that they accepted on softwood lumber. Our government will continue to vigorously defend our industry, its workers, against protectionist trade measures accepted by the Conservatives. We're continuing our legal challenges against the U.S. duties through NAFTA, through the WTO, where Canadian softwood has always won in the past. We will win again. Our government will always defend our workers and this industry.
The Honourable Member for Cloverdale, Langley City.
In my 32-year career with Parks Canada, I dealt with tourism operators and agencies across Canada. As a result, I know how important tourism is to our economy, particularly in BC, where it represents over 300,000 tourism workers. Can the Minister of Tourism, Official Languages and Francophonie please explain how the new tourism strategy works to champion job creation in the tourism industry, especially in BC?
The Honourable Minister of Tourism.
Of course, I would like to thank my colleague from Cloverdale, Langley City for his hard work. Not 1 week without him talking to me about tourism. So after being abandoned by the Conservatives, the 1.8 million workers in the tourism sector can know that we have their back. We just invested nearly $60 million in a new Canadian Experiences Fund to boost our tourism season in the wintertime and making sure that we can have tourists outside our 3 major cities to empower our regions. We will also support LGBTQ tourism, culinary, and indigenous.
The Honourable Member for Beauport-Limoilou. Mr. Speaker, everyone remembers the Official Languages Minister's huge gaffe 2 years ago when she cut a deal with Netflix with no requirement to invest in Francophone cultural content, and it caused such a stir that she lost her heritage portfolio. And now you can see 2 weeks ago she revealed a tourism plan that totally leaves out Canada's Francophone communities. Once again, what she's saying today, nothing for Francophone communities. Is this another oversight from the minister or a sign that her government doesn't really care about official languages? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Listen, Franco-Ontarians and Francophones all across the country know full well that our government is there to defend them. The Conservatives let them down, and they decided to protect Doug Ford in Ontario instead of Francophones. The second thing is, obviously, we will always take the side of language communities. We've invested $2.7 billion in language minority communities, and that's the first time so much money has been earmarked to support official languages in Canada. We're proud of our record, and we will continue to defend that record. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Hundreds of citizens in the streets, thousands of signatures on a petition. It's clear that the TELUS Tower in Otterburn Park, in a sensitive wooded area, does not have social license. The minister offered to meet with the city, but the city's hesitating because they've taken the case to court. Will the minister get into simplest solution mode and simply revoke the permit for this tower that has no social license? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. Our government believes that communities should have a say in where cell towers are installed. Communities need to be consulted openly and transparently. This government has procedures in place to come to reasonable decisions. This process means that Canadians will be able to remain connected without unnecessary disruption in their communities. The Honourable Member for Laurentides-Labelle. Mr. Speaker, in my writing, there are a lot of waterways, and those are used heavily in the summer. We're all aware of water management issues, but one issue is water-based activities. There are hundreds of activities on the water every summer. Can the minister tell Canadians what this government is doing to raise awareness among boaters? The Honourable Minister, I'd like to thank the member for Laurentides-Labelle for his excellent question. We do want to promote the best boating safety practices when Canadians take to the waterways, and we want to reach as many people as possible. And that's why we've announced additional funding for the Boating Safety Contribution Program, which supports projects to raise public awareness of boater safety. We want Canadians to have a lot of fun out on the water, but we want them to be able to use our waterways safely.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal government has repeatedly broken laws by sharing reporters' private information and their questions on the multi-billion-dollar Irving shipbuilding project. Now the government has refused to release a 200-page access information request on, wait for it, the Liberals' sharing of this private information with Irving. Why is the government continuing to break the laws, and what are they trying to hide?
The Honourable Minister of Public Services and Procurement.
Mr. Speaker, our goal is to provide Canadians, including media, with timely, factual information while ensuring sensitive information remains protected. I've directed my department to ensure that we provide accurate information regarding ongoing projects with industry partners while ensuring the privacy of all individuals that deal with my department as is respected. Thank you.
Order.
Order.
Honourable Member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the people of Lac Mégantic called for an inquiry into the train tragedy in 2013. And what did the minister reply? That they were buying into a conspiracy theory. 47 victims, that's no conspiracy, it's a fact. In February, 3 deaths in BC in an identical accident, not a conspiracy, a fact. there's been an increased number of train accidents since Lac Mégantic. It's a fact. Will the minister retract his comment, stop insulting the people of Lac Mégantic, and call a public inquiry on rail safety? The Honourable Minister of Transport. Mr. Speaker, the conspiracy is coming from the Bloc Québécois. We shed full light on the Lac Mégantic incident. I met with family members who lost a son or a daughter, a father or a mother, a brother or a sister. And I can tell you sincerely that the people of Lac Mégantic want to look towards the future, and that's precisely what we're going to do. Thank you.
Member for Lethbridge is arising on a point of order, I believe.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as you say so often, in this place we ask questions as the official opposition, and the government answers those questions, or at least they give it their best shot. And in that correspondence, sometimes there are opinions that are shared or questions that are asked that maybe other members disagree with, but you've asked us to be respectful towards one another nevertheless. So, Mr. Speaker, I would bring to your attention an incident that took place. Actually, Mr. Speaker, I'd bring to your attention an incident that takes place right now, and that is right now I am being heckled by the members opposite of me who are wanting to shut my voice down in this moment.
What a disgrace.
I will wait for you to bring them to order, Mr. Speaker.
Order. The member has not finished her point of order, and I will need to hear the rest of the point of order, and we'll all need to hear it. The honourable member for Lethbridge. Order.
Thank you.
Speaker, thank you. I appreciate upholding the rules equally in this place.
For a change.
Go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, during question period, my colleague, the member for Lakeland, asked a question. Now, my colleague is a grown woman. She was elected by the constituents who brought her here to represent them, the constituents of Lakeland. And she's been given the opportunity to carry a portfolio which has to do with energy and natural resources within Canada. Now, she is very knowledgeable about that file. During question period, she asked a question with regards to that file, which is her privilege to do so in this place. Now, after asking that question, she was then heckled by a member opposite. That member is the member for Shefford. And that member said to her,